So I'm reading the Book of Mormon from beginning to end. I was halfway through it, and I thought I want to restart this project where I think about all of the government type of messages that we can get out of it that help us to do government in a way that pleases God, because God basically endorses government several times throughout the scriptures. It's just he has his way that he wants it done. So early on, what I'm finding right now, I'm finding, for example, reference to inheritance, which inheritance is a proper thing. It's kind of like the Constitution says, for ourselves and our posterity. I'm finding reference to the city of Jerusalem, which must be destroyed. So that's municipality right there. And also, apparently prophets can prophesy regarding municipalities. They don't need to have political positions necessarily to prophesy about them. I am reading, we know that it's during the reign of Zedekiah, for example, right? So they're referencing the timing in relationship to the king. But this is what really grabs my attention the most, that I'd like to talk about first, is as they're leaving Jerusalem, the Lord sends them back and says, you have to go and get the law of Moses, or the brass plates, which contain the law of Moses, because you cannot live the law of Moses unless you have the law. So what you're going to have when you think about it in the law of Moses, besides just general prophetic commentary, prophecies, etc., you will have then your ordinances, your manners of constructing the religious buildings, such as the tabernacle, the altars, things like that, the clothing, and the symbolism of a lot of these things. But you'll also have, so these kind of official ordinances that make everything according to God's will, and you'll also have the examples of compensations that come along with the law of Moses, 10 commandments, things like that, which really are the foundation for a lot of political law. You say don't bear false witness, don't steal. When you say don't commit murder, adultery, etc. Don't covet, which we've talked about, covet being the concept of not just wishing you had your neighbor's stuff, but almost like a tendency towards promoting policies, voting for policies that would take your neighbor's inheritance, for example, since we just brought that up earlier, away from them and put it in your hands. And I do believe the concept of inheritance is an important one, having grown up in kind of rancher logging community and been around a few people who grew up a certain way. The kid who grows up running the farm, who grows up running the ranch, and who knows every last corner, who knows the responsibilities, plus who didn't have a lazy childhood, but actually worked for a significant portion of the food on the table that they got, and the clothes on their back, roof over their heads, is a lot of times we're told we're getting paid with, right? For them to get the inheritance over the extended community is incredibly appropriate, and it would probably be irresponsible anyhow too to do otherwise, especially in that kind of agrarian culture type of thing, at least, right? That's my strong feelings on that. And but anyhow, the law of Moses, while not exactly similar necessarily to our Constitution, still is both a physical law and a spiritual law. It contains physical considerations and how to deal with them, and it contains the proper procedures for doing things, which positions are to exercise which procedures, how to pass on those authorities, for example. There's a lot comparable in it, and apparently Lehi just being told, hey, I've got a place for you over here, we're going to have you leave the land of Jerusalem, that wasn't enough for him to just take his family and leave behind their inheritance. The Lord said, no, you really have to have the law with you. Law matters. You need to have it with you. And we've been told by J. Reuben Clark, for example, he's got one of the best ones where he says the Constitution is practically similar to part of the Doctrine and Covenants, based on the way the Lord is claimed credit for it, right? I'm paraphrasing, of course, so I'm better at paraphrasing President Benson. He says it's akin to the revelations of God. God said he established it in the Doctrine and Covenants by the hands of wise men whom he raised up for the purpose. He said that whatsoever more or less comes of evil, which is a quantifiable thing, more versus less, right? And I think, I can imagine that being on Lehi's mind. Ooh, what if we accidentally start adding to it? And what if we actually accidentally start taking away from the law of Moses? What if we start messing it up, right? He's like, then we've apostatized at that point if we do, right? We have to have, even when he has this vision of the Lord coming down to him, the Lord hands him a book. I think the books matter, I think that written down things matter, and that's all there is to it. Otherwise, why did the Lord hand him a book, right? So written down things have to matter. So I would recommend reading the actual writing of the Constitution to anybody. And I think there's more thought. Lehi testifies of the abominations of Jerusalem, which then I went through other words that in my mind match with that, which is corruption, monstrosity. I thought of, cancer, how cancer is basically the recreation of what kind of cells they're supposed to have, but instead it's actually creating the wrong kind of cells. So the coding is switched. The coding isn't where it's supposed to be anymore, right? And I think that is an abomination. I think an abomination is when something is founded on solid principles, but then it is twisted. It is, there was another word I came up with, but let's go with monstrosity. When it's turned into something it's not supposed to be, and still claims to be the thing it's supposed to be. That to me is the ultimate abomination, right? And Lehi testified to that. And it sounds like he didn't want to repeat that, as best as I can tell, then, saying, hey, these guys, I'm accusing them of not living the law, but I better have my family live the law, right? So I think, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, our founding documents, and some of the commentary, that's probably what was in the brass plates too, was commentary, along with, the scriptural messages, right? So we've been told that the Constitution is the fundamental law of Zion by Harold B. Lee, by I want to say Wilford Woodruff said something similar. Who else? J. Reuben Clark, which makes sense, when it's so much easier to be people of one heart and one mind if you have a written down foundation that everybody can refer to and be on the honest quest. I think that's a key word right there. Your heart has to have the pure intent, because if your heart has the pure intent as you're reading it and you're studying it, even if you make mistakes at first, because of your honest intent, you will keep gradually correcting. And like the clock experiment where the physicists put all these pendulum clocks up on the wall in the same room, and sure, they're all going the same speed, right? They all have the same intent, but they're not all hitting the same corner at the exact same moment. He comes in, the next day, something like that, and boom. Not only are they all going the same speed, but now they're all hitting their corners at the exact same split second. They sync up that well, right? I think that we have to be on an honest quest, and the only way we can be on that honest quest is the same way the Lord handed Lehi a book, the same way Lehi sent his sons in for the book. The written word matters, and so that's my first thought on government lessons regarding the Book of Mormon, or that we can get from the Book of Mormon, is the written word matters, which contained the law of Moses then, and nowadays we have the scriptures and the Constitution. Thanks for listening, you guys. See you.